Hey YouTube, welcome to part 4 of my everyday carry series, where we're going to be talking about today notepads and pens. So when you think about being able to write down and jot down thoughts and notes, and maybe to write out a small map, or to be able to communicate ideas to yourself or others in the future, besides your smartphone or a tablet or any other type of electronic device. In my opinion, though, when you write things out physically and manually, you have a bit of more memory of it, and you also have a more customized record. And so, what I personally do, of course, you can pick a lot of different formats and to fit this need. This is just my simple way of doing it. I take these very simple notepads that have this type of a plasticky type of rubber folding lips here, or these folds, and they're just spiral bound. It's a very thin, as you can see, compared to my pointer finger, and my pointer finger is actually wider than the spiral. And you can see what this is. It's just basic notepad paper that's lined on both sides, and it's simple, and it gives you the ability to keep your notes, in order, but it's not so obtrusive that you couldn't draw a map over top of it if you needed to. And so you could also slip in some free floating pieces of just plain paper if you wanted to have no lines, or even sometimes what I've done is just taped in with just some masking tape, a few pieces of just plain paper with no lines, to give me that option if I wish to have that feature of no lines. So I just wanted to mention these notebooks and and notepads in particular. I got these like at the dollar store. It was some type of dollar store. It wasn't in my area. I was visiting a friend in another state, and they had these in a multi-pack. I think there was like 6 for like $3 or something. I've seen them cheaper than that, but there's just different kinds. So you'll pay anywhere from 25 cents to $1, depending on what kind they are. I've seen them also, of course, with the leather bound, and other types of, vinyl and things like that. But for me, simple is better. Weight-wise, they're just literally maybe an ounce at the most, and form factor wise, it's just the perfect size. It can slip into even a smaller shirt pocket with no problem. And so those are going to be some of the criteria for me. Is going to be small footprint, lightweight, and thin, of course, and having some lines on the paper for organization, and for the ability for it to come in different colors. Even though that's not the biggest, objective here is to have colors. I typically carry the black ones, but when they run out, I just go with the other colors. And I like these kind of more of neutral matte type of colors. I don't go with these neon greens and things like that. Okay, so that's pretty much sums up the notepads for everyday carry. In terms of pens, there's a whole world of pens out there, as we know. And it can be anything from like this Sharpie pen, and they have them in like fine, like this is a fine point. You can get them in just different tips. You can even get the markers, in the more blunted, wide if you want that. But if you're writing and stuff, you'd probably want more of a fine tip, in my opinion. You can also go with the old, these are just obviously budget options too. But they work for me. I wouldn't even try anything more expensive, because what works. This is a Bic round stick. This is a medium, and these you can find between, at least in my area, about 10 cents at the most, between 7 and 10 cents for those, and it works great. Once again, it's a full length pen, but they don't even weigh an ounce, and I mean, if they made one that was a little bit shorter, and I've actually cut these down before to make them shorter for packs and stuff and kits, but for the most part, it doesn't really get in the way. But I wouldn't, be upset if they made a line of those that were smaller. But the big round sticks they just write really well. I really enjoy those. If you want to go a little bit more, let's just say tactical, and I'm not saying this is something that you'd have to have. We talked about this briefly before about tactical pens. There's a whole medley of these out there, and the price ranges go from anything from just a few dollars to hundreds and hundreds of dollars, depending on the exotic materials and the maker of them. This is just a very simple Smith & Wesson made by Taylor Cutlery, and this is the military and police model, second generation. Has some knurling here in the handle, and a nice pocket clip, and so it just kind of basically unscrews, and you got a pen, and then you also got this blunt striking object or a coup baton. I like this one too. It's not too big. It just weighs just maybe a couple ounces at most, maybe even just under 2 ounces. I'm not for sure in that range, and it works for me. So I typically maybe carry a big pen and maybe a tactical pen. And so, back in the day, I sometimes used to carry pencils, but obviously you can't really protect the tip of those. Plus, if you break off the tip, you have to get out your pocket knife or carry a pencil sharpener, and it's just kind of awkward in some situations. Now, if you go camping and stuff, a smaller cut down pencil I think is recommended over even a pen, just for the applications of use, because you can sharpen it yourself, but I think you get a lot more usability out of a pencil, and it's more versatile, especially if you need to erase the marks and start over. So this is just what I think is a good setup, and I've seen other people do this kind of setup, not in this exact form, but variants of a notepad and a pen, and maybe even a secondary pen that's more of a tactical self-defense pen, a non-lethal option. Even though we're not at that point talking about lethal and non-lethal personal protection tools, this is definitely going to be a possible option. Could you even use your big pen for self-defense? If you had to, you'd probably break the pen though on a strike or two. But if you're going towards soft body tissue, maybe like the eyes or throat or area, it may hold up for a few strikes. But the whole objective here is to, in self-defense, to get people off of you and get away. And so that'll be discussed in a later video. But in this video, you got communication options and record keeping options. And I think these are just the simplest ways to go. You could always complicate this and get a higher end pen and have the maintenance of that. You can even go with a fountain pen. I have never gotten into that. I have friends who are into that, and I never understood that, but that's just me though. You can also go crazy and get exotic, notepads. And I'm not saying that the Write in the Rain pads are bad. Those waterproofed paper notepads, they're very cool too. If I had one, I'd probably bring it out and recommend that one. But I don't own, at least I don't think I do. I might own one somewhere, but I don't know if I have one of those, and I don't think I own one of those. But waterproof notepads would be recommended. But for me personally, though, I always keep these in a pocket, and they're under 1 or 2 layers of clothing. So when I am out in the rain, typically they don't really get messed with. Especially this sleeve cover here, that's some kind of a plastic rubbery sleeve. It does help repel whatever can get through the clothing, but I've never had that problem though. So these are thoughts and about these particular products here for writing utensils and for notepads. And so I hope you enjoy this, and stay tuned for the next part of our series. Thanks a lot.